You're not my family. You're just someone we pitied. Those words fell from Alina Rowe's mouth like a blade, sharp and cold. Inside a lavish penthouse in the heart of Manhattan, as snow blanketed the city outside, a 64-year-old man, Samuel Green, stood still, a worn-out suitcase in his hand. No argument, no reaction. Just his eyes. The eyes of a man who had raised a child for 25 years, now cast out from the very place he once called home. Alina, now a prominent attorney, engaged to a successful young CEO, stood in the living room beneath a grand crystal chandelier, as if she had never fallen asleep beside him in that cramped Bronx apartment long ago. "This is the right decision, Alina," said Trevor, her fiancé, from the sofa. "People like us shouldn't be living with people like him." No one objected. No one stopped it. Samuel tightened his grip on the suitcase handle and bowed his head, as if accepting his fate. But behind that quiet, resigned posture lay a secret he had kept for 15 years. A truth that, once revealed, would completely upend his place in this world. You think you know someone because they're silent? Sometimes. That silence is the last thing you should underestimate. One winter night, 25 years ago, at Roosevelt Hospital, a 4-year-old girl sat silently in the freezing hallway. Her blonde hair tangled, arms clutching a worn-out teddy bear, her eyes hollow after hearing the words, "Your parents didn't make it. No relatives. No family. No one willing to take responsibility." Samuel Green, the Rowe family's private driver, stood quietly in the doorway. He wasn't rich. He had no prestigious education. No social standing. Just a black man, living alone in an aging Bronx apartment, with a heart that had never learned how to say no to a trembling child consumed by loss. "You don't have to call me Dad," he said gently, kneeling down, hand extended. "But I'll take care of you like a father, if you'll let me." And the little girl nodded, her tiny hand wet with tears. That night, Samuel brought Alina home to his small apartment. 1 bedroom, a torn-up sofa, an empty fridge. But it was warmer than any mansion, because for the first time, 2 unrelated souls leaned on each other, just to survive. From that moment on, Samuel was no longer just a driver. He became the only home Alina had left in the world. No fancy photo albums. No words of praise. Just early mornings when Samuel left home at 4 a.m. and returned close to midnight, exhausted, yet always stopping by his daughter's room to see if her study lamp was still on. He worked the morning shift as a mall security guard. In the afternoon, he drove part-time. At night, he mopped floors at a fast food joint in Brooklyn. Every dollar he earned, he saved for Alina. "Dad, I need a laptop for my presentation." The next day, his old car was gone. Alina never asked. And Samuel never mentioned that he walked through 3 subway stations each day after that. He gave up the only room with a window for Alina and slept on the sofa. For 12 years. Dinner was often instant noodles with eggs, but every holiday had a small cake, because my daughter deserves beautiful memories. No one knew he skipped lunch for weeks, just to afford her prom dress. No one saw him standing at a distance, behind a wall, silently watching his daughter walk on stage to receive her scholarship. Samuel didn't have much, but everything he did have, he gave to the future of a child who shared no blood with him. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. It began with averted eyes whenever friends asked, "Who is he?" Then came family gatherings, where Samuel was conveniently left out of every invitation. Ever since Alina met Trevor Hayes, a young tech CEO born into an elite family on the Upper East Side, her past had suddenly become something to be hidden. Trevor was always polite, but cold. Every handshake with Samuel was brief, distant, laced with condescension. "Babe, he helped raise you or something?" "Yeah, kind of like an older man who looked after me when I was little." That night, at their engagement party on a luxury rooftop in the heart of New York, Samuel stood off to the side, wearing an old suit he had carefully steamed at home. When Alina stepped up to the stage, lights shining brightly, she beamed and said, "And this is Mr. Samuel Green, the man who helped me during my childhood." No more dad, no familiar warmth in her eyes. No one invited him to the head table. His seat sat tucked beside the drink station, as if his very presence was an inconvenience. In the dazzling glow of success, the ones who first lit your path are too often pushed into the shadows. One cold afternoon in late February, Samuel received a short text from Alina. "Trevor needs to talk. Come home early." The conversation took place in the living room, a room once filled with photos of Alina's graduations, now replaced by abstract art and cold, sterile lighting. Trevor didn't sugarcoat it. "We'd like you to move out. That old garage you built years ago. I want to convert it into my personal gym. And your presence here doesn't really align with Alina's image anymore." Samuel turned to Alina, hoping for a glance, a flicker of hesitation. But she said nothing, just nodded slightly. "I'll leave." "Don't call yourself that anymore," Alina cut in, her voice sharp, like an icicle to the heart. "And please, don't come to my office. My colleagues are starting to ask questions about our relationship. Also, don't tell anyone you raised me. I don't want people to get the wrong idea about my background." It wasn't a goodbye. It wasn't anger. It was an erasure, deliberate, calculated, and merciless, as if he had never existed in her story of success. Not everyone who leaves you hates you. Some people just think you no longer fit the version of themselves they want to show. The little coffee shop in Harlem hadn't changed in nearly 2 decades. Scratched wooden tables, an old espresso machine, and soft jazz humming from a crackling speaker. Samuel sat at his usual table, the same one where he used to rest his head at 3 a.m. between shifts. A hand landed on his shoulder. Louis Tran, an old friend, Vietnamese-American, once worked the night cleaning crew with him at the Manhattan Convention Center. "Holy hell, I thought you'd moved to another state." "Just moved out of her life," Samuel replied, taking a sip of cold coffee. As Samuel recounted everything, from being pushed out of the house to being labeled a burden to her public image, Louise's face darkened. "You forget," Louise growled. "When she started college, you sold your blood 3 times just to buy her that color printer. I was the one who drove you to the hospital, remember? And now, she disowns you in front of her fiancé?" Silence fell between them. "I know you're hurting, but I also know you're hiding something." Louise stared straight into his friend's eyes. "You've always gone quiet when you're planning something. This time's no different, is it?" Samuel simply smiled. No nod, no shake of the head. Just a glimmer in his eyes. The kind that says the storm coming isn't meant to destroy, but to wash away everything false. Louise was still in shock as Samuel placed his phone on the table. The banking app lit up. A number appeared. One that most people wouldn't dare to dream of in an entire lifetime. 5,000. 23. $217.48. "What the hell, Sam?" Louise blurted, nearly spilling his coffee. Samuel simply smiled, his voice calm, as if discussing gas prices. 15 years ago, when Alina started college, I used my brother's accident insurance payout to invest in a tech startup. Back then, no one believed that company would survive 6 months. Louise's eyes widened. "Value tech. Don't tell me you..." Samuel nodded. That startup had now IPO'd, and his account had grown over 100% in value. I never told anyone, never showed it off, never spent it. I didn't buy a new house, didn't upgrade my car. I kept working as a security guard, washed dishes, drove part-time. Luis leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. Why'd you hide it so well? Samuel looked out through the foggy cafe window. Because I wanted to know. If one day I had nothing, would she still call me Dad? And now I have my answer. The next morning, Samuel's phone rang. An unknown number. A cold female voice. I'm the legal assistant representing Ms. Alina Rowe and Mr. Trevor Hayes. We're sending you a formal request to forfeit any residency or ownership claims related to the penthouse. No greeting. No thank you. Moments later, an email came through, attached with legal documents. Under New York law, you may claim residential rights due to having lived in the property for over 2 years. However, to avoid media complications that could affect Ms. Rowe's public image, we ask that you waive those rights. Samuel read every word without blinking. Trevor wasn't just trying to kick him out. He wanted to erase any legal trace that connected Samuel to Alina. A calculated move. And a heartless one. Samuel called back. His voice, steady, unnervingly calm. I'll sign, but after tomorrow. We hope you're not planning to escalate this matter. Oh no, Samuel replied. I hate drama. I just prefer the right timing. He hung up. Then looked at his watch. It was time to play the card neither Alina nor Trevor knew he held. That afternoon, Samuel stepped into the gleaming glass lobby of Kingsley & Rowe, one of the most prestigious financial firms in New York. Wearing an old coat and shoes worn at the heel, but his stride was steady. The walk of a man who knew exactly what he came to do. The young receptionist eyed him with brief suspicion. But the moment he presented his appointment code and investment account name, her demeanor shifted instantly. Good afternoon, Mr. Green. Please proceed to the 21st floor. The director is expecting you. In the spacious boardroom, Samuel placed a file folder on the table, calmly, deliberately. I'd like to invest $2.5 million into 2 initiatives. Full scholarships for underprivileged students of color, and a skill-building center in the Bronx. Director Kingsley paused. A very ambitious humanitarian project. Any specific requests? Samuel leaned back in his chair, voice low and resolute. No names engraved. No media coverage. Just make sure the right kids get helped. Kids like Alina, back then. A moment of silence. Kingsley nodded, his gaze shifting from analytical to respectful. While others used money to raise their ego, Samuel used his to raise people. And he knew a gala was coming soon, where every truth would be brought to light. The Astoria Grand Hotel sparkled under crystal chandeliers and a crimson carpet that stretched all the way up the steps. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Reporters, photographers, and media outlets crowded the lobby, covering what had been dubbed the biggest educational investment gala of the year, funded by a mysterious anonymous donor. From a pearl-colored Porsche, Alina Rowe stepped out like a movie star. Custom white silk gown. A 7-carat engagement ring on her hand, courtesy of Trevor Hayes, heir to the Hayes development empire. Flawless. Perfect, Trevor whispered as he adjusted a loose strand of her hair. Tonight marks the start of a life without burdens. They strode into the grand lobby, surrounded by the sound of champagne pouring, heels clacking on marble, and the mingling of congratulations and calculation. I heard tonight's sponsor is some insanely wealthy mystery investor, one guest murmured. No one's ever seen him. Word is, he invests without ever putting his name on anything. Alina chuckled. I like that type. Gets things done, without making a mess. Trevor nodded, his expression calm. They had no idea. The man they were talking about was the very storm from their past they had just tried to erase. The music slowed. The lights in the grand hall dimmed, leaving only the main stage ablaze. The host stepped up to the podium, a professional smile on his face, his voice clear and steady. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is not just about wine, evening gowns, and handshakes. It's about hope, brought to us by a quiet man. A man who has donated $5.5 million to scholarships and community education centers in the Bronx. Please welcome Mr. Samuel Green. In that moment, time froze. Trevor stood stunned. His champagne glass nearly slipped from his hand. And Alina? Her face went pale. She gripped her clutch so tightly, her fingernails left marks on her skin. The entire ballroom turned to look, and the TV cameras caught it. That precise second when her eyes widened in shock. Samuel stepped onto the stage. Dressed in a sharp black tuxedo, his stride was steady and composed. No longer the doorman, no old suitcase in sight. Only his gaze, deep, piercing, and with nothing left to lose. He took the microphone, looked out over the crowd, and stopped, right where Alina was sitting. There are things people think they've buried, but one day, they bloom, right in front of the world. The spotlight shone directly on Samuel. He didn't need a speech. Just a heart that had once been shattered, and now stood stronger than ever. My name is Samuel Green. I used to be a driver, a doorman, a night janitor, the invisible man at your parties. I once raised a child, not of my blood, as if she were my own. I believed, if I loved enough, I would be valued. But I was wrong. Not a single sound in the hall. Only Alina's rapid breathing and Trevor's ice-cold stare. Samuel looked directly at them. 1 week ago, I was cast out of the house I once watched over at night, the house I helped build brick by brick, because I no longer fit the social image of my daughter. I used to think sacrifice was enough. But today, I know, not everyone deserves unconditional love. His gaze landed precisely where Alina sat, head bowed. In a room bathed in golden elegance, his words fell, like a cold blade slicing through layers of makeup and business cards. Just 3 days after the gala, major newspapers ran headlines like, "Renowned attorney Alina Rowe accused of betraying the foster father who raised her for 25 years. Trevor Hayes loses inheritance following ethics scandal." The clip of Samuel's speech spread like wildfire. No effects, no clickbait. Just the truth, raw and razor sharp, spoken by a man once dismissed as a social stain. Henderson and Myers, the law firm where Alina had worked for 7 years, issued an immediate statement. "We uphold professional ethics and social responsibility. Ms. Rowe's actions do not reflect the values of our firm." She was terminated within the week. As for Trevor Hayes, his millionaire family swiftly pulled out of all joint ventures. His father, founder of Hayes Development, made a public declaration. "We do not tolerate disrespect toward those who sacrificed for our family." Trevor was stripped of all representative powers. Business partners turned their backs. No one wanted to deal with a man who betrayed gratitude. From the golden couple of the legal world, they became living symbols of arrogance and ingratitude. One rainy afternoon, Samuel's phone vibrated. The caller ID lit up. Alina. He stared at it for a few seconds, then answered. On the other end, only silence. Then, a trembling breath. "Dad," she said, using the word for the first time in years. "I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just Want a chance to start over? At your center. Samuel didn't respond right away. Outside, the rain tapped gently on the office window. The same office where he had just signed off on 12 new scholarships for black students. If you truly mean it, he said calmly, then there'll be no special treatment. No private office, no last name to shield you. You'll start at the bottom, like everyone who's been turned away by this world. Alina's voice broke. I accept, as long as I have a chance to walk back toward you. Samuel didn't smile, but his eyes welled up. Because he knew, some apologies can't erase the past, but they can be the first door to a different future. The Green Legacy Foundation stood in the heart of the Bronx, the place Alina once grew up, but had long forgotten. No more luxury business suits, no more leather chairs in glass-walled boardrooms. Just her, in a simple button-down shirt, sitting beside a 17-year-old boy whose eyes were filled with hope. Does this part about my career goal sound okay? The boy asked, his hands slightly trembling. Alina looked at the application. The handwriting was messy, but the determination was clear. I want to study mechanical engineering because I once fixed my little sister's bike by myself. But, she smiled gently, then carefully corrected the small grammar mistakes. The boy lowered his head and whispered, if it weren't for this center, I don't know what I'd be doing. At school, people only see that I'm poor. But here, it's the first time someone actually believes in my dream. Alina's throat tightened. In that moment, she saw herself, a child who was once believed in, once given a chance, by a man she had once turned away. And for the first time in years, she felt she was giving something back, not with money, but with her heart. That night, after a long day at the center, Alina sat alone in a small rented room near the Bronx, where the streetlight cast faded yellow streaks through the window. Her phone trembled in her hand, not from the cold, but from nerves. For the first time in years, she made the call. Dad, her voice cracked the moment the line connected. I know, I've hurt you more than anyone ever could. But thank you for not leaving me behind. Thank you for still believing I could become better. Even when I denied you, denied everything you gave up for me. Samuel didn't respond immediately. He was standing on the balcony of the center, the night breeze gently tousling his silver hair. His voice deep and warm, as if it had never changed. True love doesn't need conditions. But forgiveness, that takes time. And it takes action. Alina clutched the phone tighter, tears streaming down her face. I understand. And I'll prove it, with every single day I live, starting now. Samuel looked up at the night sky, and where no one could see, he smiled. Because he knew the daughter he once raised with all his heart was finally finding her way back. Not to apologize, but to truly love. The grand auditorium at Princeton University fell silent as Samuel Green took the stage. No longer the forgotten chauffeur. No longer the image liability someone once labeled him. Now he stood as the founder of the Green Legacy Foundation, an organization that had awarded over 800 scholarships and built 5 education centers across the nation. I once thought the greatest pain was betrayal, Samuel said, his voice clear beneath the golden stage lights. But then I realized that pain can become a foundation. He looked toward the front row. Alina sat there, hair neatly tied back, eyes shining. No longer a celebrated attorney, but a social work expert who had helped hundreds of youth escape violence, poverty, and prejudice. Samuel smiled. The most powerful form of revenge is turning someone's contempt into the foundation for something they'll never reach. Compassion. The entire auditorium rose in applause. not for the speech, but for a father once rejected who used love to rebuild a lost soul. The bond between father and daughter was never truly gone. It had only lost its way before finding its path back through humility and genuine gratitude.